Video games are actually like a big magic trick. Everything is smoke and mirrors. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 things video games use to trick your brain. Number 10 is camera tricks in SpiderMan on PS4. Now, as we'll get into with other open world games, there are some very clever things that lots of different developers use for open world environments. However, what happens when you model New York and you make this big detailed world on a system that doesn't have the RAM to handle the interiors of the buildings at the same time as the exteriors? What happens when the story necessitates you go inside a building? Well, in the case of SpiderMan, some very clever cutscene camera work happens. The front of Fisk's tower at the beginning of the game stays loaded. It's not unloaded, it's there. And the camera zooms in and pulls a cutscene. Now, all of this happens in real time. It's not a pre-rendered cutscene or anything like that, and it looks great. But in the background, while this is going on, New York is being unloaded, and the interior of the building is being loaded. Now, this is a pretty cool way of handling something like this. It allows them not to say that they did a pre-rendered cutscene and just loaded the interior, and everything appears quite smooth. You get to merge the cinematic camera with the in-game camera, and it feels seamless. Number 9, in Dark Souls 3, bosses follow the same time signature that the music does, meaning there is some expectation that the music will create in the player's brain. First, that the game will go along with the music to some extent, allowing you to make predictions and time moves, but also that the more bosses you go through that feel this way, the more you will believe every boss will be this way. And then they throw in the dancer, who does not follow the time signature along with the music, and is therefore totally messing up your rhythm. Literally. It's such a clever thing to do to condition the player without even letting them know that they're being conditioned. Like, the game could easily say, time your movements with the time signature to the music. No, it's all in your head. That's great. Number 8, Guerrilla Games' Horizon Zero Dawn is an absolutely beautiful, massively lived-in looking world with procedurally generated vegetation. So, the developers actually detailed this in a manner that there's no chance we'll ever be able to explain at the same level of detail. So, to simplify, artists create assets such as grass, leaves, gravel, trees, etc., and algorithms are created to create different types of placement of those things. Dense forest, light forest, field, short grass, long grass, etc. It allows for the landscape to be changed much quicker because you can essentially paint a forest exactly as you want it, and the CPU basically handles all of the detail-oriented stuff, the transitions between grass and trees and everything. It also helps a lot because of the way that Horizon Zero Dawn renders the world, which is constantly unloading and reloading stuff that you are or aren't looking at. And the result is really a beautiful game. Number 7, there's the repurposing of technology in some ways that I think is sometimes really amazing. Holden Link at Turbo Button Incorporated posted to Twitter that when they made their Adventure Time game, they repurposed technology that they used to make tracks in a racing game they had developed. Looking at the photos they posted, it seems to be some kind of like spine editor where you draw a line and it fills in the assets for the road. Now, I'm guessing what they did was purpose this so that it could be changed in real time and it would create assets for Jake's body as it stretched and unstretched. However it actually works, it's really awesome to see something like that because it shows that in a game world, there's literally no difference between anything. Like, a road is polygons with a texture on it. Jake's body from Adventure Time is polygons with a texture on it. That's it. Number 6, the Uncharted 2 train level uses a whole bunch of really cool tricks to load different maps and progress through environments as it really sets a train entirely on a loop. The first loop is the forest loop. It's just a bunch of forests and various landscapes, and then you go into a train car that has very high sides, and while you can't see out, it switches the loop to another train loop. And then, to switch to the next map, one of the train cars breaks off and falls and triggers a cutscene. While that cutscene goes, it switches to a tunnel map. When you get to the next part, it switches a camera during a cutscene, and just as it cuts the camera, it cuts the environment too, bringing you out onto the final loop, a loop around snowy cliffs, and it's just, the whole thing is brilliant, honestly. So much sleight of hand goes on during this really masterfully created level. I enjoy the hell out of this level, it's so good. And on the tech that it was built on, the PlayStation 3, it's also pretty impressive looking. Still, now, to look back on. Does it look as good as Horizon Zero Dawn? No, but for the tech, it's very commendable. I love that level. It's so fun. Number 5, a lot of games do this, but Halo 2's tutorial asks the player, first thing, to look up. What the player presses to look up, the game decides whether or not it's going to invert the X or Y axis for the player. So if you're like me and you play on inverted, there's no point you actually have to set the game to inverted. It asks you to look up, you press down, and it's like, oh, so it's one of those inverted freaks. I know a lot of people don't play on inverted. I think it's pretty normal not to. But I wish that more games would pull this clever trick. A lot of games do, to be clear. Portal 2 does the same thing. But hell, do it in every game. Just make it so I don't have to set the damn thing in the menu. That would be great. Number 4, Breath of the Wild uses geometry in a way that not a lot of games really do. Obviously, in any 3D game, triangles and rectangles are the base unit of everything. Those are polygons, that's what's rendering. You know that already. But in Breath of the Wild, there's a design philosophy built around obscuring certain parts of the player's experience using triangle-shaped geometry, whether that's landmarks, whether it's mountains. You just have a few varying sizes of these things and you use them to make it so you can't see really too far off into any direction. It creates a bit of an air of mystique in the world and encourages you to climb a mountain, to see a new thing, to want to care in a more active way. And I can vouch for this actually working too. When I see a mountain in Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, my instinct is to climb it. It's not like with a lot of other games where that feels like that's the border of the map. Something that I think was made canon in Skyrim. Yeah, there were other mountains, but the mountains really feel like the end of the map. They would also use rectangles to kind of tell the player, well, you're not going this way. Triangle means mountain or thing you can climb, whereas rectangle means don't try it. And again, I can vouch for that. That's basically how I look at the world of Breath of the Wild, so well done, Nintendo. Number 3, partly to make you feel like a badass and partly to make games not impossible. A game might make the last bit of health actually take more to get through. Like in both Assassin's Creed Origins and Doom, as Jennifer Sherrill said on Twitter, the low health portion of the health bar actually takes about twice as many hits to go through as any other part. That is to say, let's say you've got 10% left of your health. It would actually take as many hits to get through that health as it would another 20% anywhere else on the health bar. Which I think is fun to think about because it's a trick that makes you feel like you're more of an action hero when you get down in that area. Oh, I just made it! I just made it! That's exactly what it's there to induce, which is kind of flattering at the same time as it is exhilarating. I don't love the flattering aspect of it, but I do love what it feels like to get through an area of a game just barely. It's really satisfying, and when games do this, it's basically to make the game feel more satisfying in those situations. And I'm okay with that, honestly. Number 2, Left 4 Dead is a really, really fast-paced game that is constantly keeping you on edge. But believe it or not, this is accomplished with a very simple principle. Whichever player is furthest away from the group is the one that's targeted. Or if that's not a condition that can be fulfilled, whatever player who has received less aggression from the game is again targeted by the game for aggression. So more or less what the game does is just make it so that it seems like there is no respite. If you feel like you're getting a respite, that's when you're going to get the aggression. If you think you can wander away and maybe not deal with zombies for a little while, no. The game sees you and knows what you're doing. And it's one of those games where you just wish there was a sequel, because damn, Left 4 Dead and Left 4 Dead 2 are just such good games. I love those games. Every bit of how it works is wonderful, and I'd love to see them do it again. And finally, number 1. If you remember when I was talking about the procedurally generated foliage of Horizon Zero Dawn, I mentioned very briefly that the game only renders what it is you're looking at, and I want to go into a little more detail for number 1 here, because I think this is one of the coolest. In a couple of the games we listed here, they use various camera tricks to hide the fact that they're loading in a new map or new geometry such as the interior of a building, but Horizon Zero Dawn just assumes that at every moment the camera is itself a trick. It knows what can be seen on the camera, and using some very slight algorithmic prediction, it brings in the landscape and all that procedurally generated foliage as the camera moves. Now this allows the game to have a massive amount of detail in the geometry it's rendering on screen because it's the only geometry. There's nothing behind the player or off to the sides. It's not rendering that stuff. It's unloaded, it's gone. And what that means is every single thing you see on screen can be just a little bit more detailed. It sounds a little complex to explain, but seeing a visual of it is kind of a technical wonder. And the results are plain and simple to see. Horizon Zero Dawn is one of the most beautiful games ever made, and it's on a console. I mean, aside from, you as a kid, what on earth was that section all about, as far as the visuals of the face? No. But beyond that, beautiful game, one of the best. Have you ever noticed any weirdness with any of these tricks, or maybe something you've seen yourself? Leave us a comment, let us know what you think, and if you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week, and the best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click the subscribe button, and don't forget to click the notification bell. As always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at FalconTheHero, and we'll see you next time, right here on gameranx.